We will call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will have roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Councilmember Kraus,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Gullikson, Mayor Waller.
Yes. Okay, we welcome everybody that's in the audience there, Brian. Thanks for coming. We'll just start out with Mayor Waller's words of wisdom for the day. Make sure you're not just waiting for someone else to fix things or hoping that things will improve. Figure out what's going on and make a plan to improve things. It's a quote by Kenneth Thomas. Thought it was something for us to think about, I guess. We will move on to approval of the agenda. Is there anything that anybody would like to add or any corrections on the agenda?
I'll make a motion for approval of the agenda dated 5/23/23.
Okay, we have a motion.
No second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We will have citizens' comments. If anybody would like to approach the council, now would be the time. Okay, we have none. We have no public hearings. We will move on to reading and approval of the 5/9 regular meeting minutes.
I will move approval of the regular minutes from the May 9 meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And then we have the condensed version of the May 9th minutes.
I move approval of the condensed version of the May 9th minutes.
And I will second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Carried. Now we move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the audit of city bills, the gambling reports, application for exempt permit for the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, application for exempt permit AMVETS Post 290, the library board minutes, and the park board minutes, and the park bench locations. And I just need a motion to approve those items on the consent agenda.
I will move a motion to approve the items listed on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We have no petitions, requests, and communications. We shall move on to ordinances and resolutions. The first resolution before us is a resolution authorizing the submittal of an Energizing Rural Communities Prize application on behalf of the Morris Model Team. Blaine, you want to shed a little background on that?
Yeah, and if you want to come up, Brian's here
Okay.
to kind of help with this.
Okay.
It was brought to my attention that this program was available, and when we sat down and we looked at it, this is literally written for us. So I don't know if you want to just explain what the federal prize is, but really it was written for a city like Morrison, what we're doing.
Yeah, so it is a federal prize. Cities have to be under 10,000 people. There are 60 of them nationwide, and they're looking for cities that are doing work in the clean energy sphere. So solar, wind, projects that the Morris model is already doing. And so in the prize, they want to find out what your plans are for the future. And again, I know we've included things that you're already doing around the water treatment plant with analyzing that and solar. And again, it's not committing us to do anything other than have a plan of what you want to do next. The first round, there's 60 applications that, 60 winners, awards that they would grant, and it's $100,000 if you win the prize. And then from that 60, in a year from now, there will be another round of application, and they'll pick 20 and give 200,000. So if you got both, you could get $300,000. And again, what they want you to do, and this is our interpretation of it, is they want you to move forward on some of the things that you're planning on doing. Again, making the steps to make those plans. So they're not even, it is already, the benefit that I think we have is it's already stuff you're planning on looking at and doing. In fact, you've already done some of that work already. So it requires an application which has already been written and is ready to go, and a 3-minute video, and that's already been drafted and is ready to go. And Griffin Peck is the narrator, along with some pictures of things that we've already done and some videos of like solar on the school, some of the work at the university, and some of the West Central Research and Outreach work.
Yeah, we actually reached out to Click Content Studios. Mike Siak got in touch with them to see what kind of content that they had in their library that they created for us. So I know he was looking for some drone video and stuff like that, and he's overseeing editing that video and putting it together for us.
Yep. So.
And it's not retroactive or anything, like, in other words, it can't be for a project you've already done, it's gotta be for something coming ahead.
I think the fact that we've done a lot of stuff, I think puts us in a good place for the application. And so, again, we've listed a few different things that are already happening. So the solar here, the solar here, the solar at the water treatment plant, the school is looking at solar. We're working on projects at the university that we've included. So we've put all of those together. And I think it's a really strong application. I think that we'll see, but I think, if you look around Minnesota, this city of Morris has done a lot of work already that fits right into this. And again, it's for cities under 10,000 people, so in a rural area,
Yeah.
under 10,000, it's a pretty narrow pool, but
Okay.
it's an exciting opportunity. So.
Yeah, and just, a couple points that I would make is, one of the things that we did is we went to the state, got a grant from the LCCMR program to fund a sustainability coordinator. And that money will run out eventually, so you could use that money to help fund this position. But the other thing that's really important to understand is Morris kind of takes the lead with the Morris model. So we have Griffin under the city, and we wind up doing a lot of coordination and stuff. But this application is for the Morris model, and that's the university, that's the school, that's the research farm, that's everybody. And the cash prize that you get, they never take it back. They're not going to tell you how to spend it. And realistically, what we need to do is sit down and look at what's the best use of that. Now, if we would have had that happen maybe 6 months ago, we might have used it to pay for engineering on our solar, studying our solar on our plant, a water plant, sewer plant. But there's going to be opportunities to do that. But as I said, when we sat down and started looking at the criteria, they want communities to put together partnerships to work on sustainability projects. Well, we already did that. I mean, we really did. And we've been doing it for years, and we actually get credit. One of the things I said in my memo, we get credit for the maturity of our organization already. And they want organizations that are gonna actually do stuff. So we can already demonstrate that we're going to do stuff. We can demonstrate that we're looking at doing stuff. And it's not just us as a city. The university's working on some really, really neat things there. The research farm's working on some really neat things that they got grants on and stuff like that. But it's a good opportunity to try to bring in a little bit more money that we can utilize within the system that we're working on now.
And then if awarded, then that money would be awarded to the city of Morris?
Yeah, as the applicant, it comes to the city of Morris.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Timeframe, when it will be awarded, or when?
They said it's due tomorrow, and they said the notification would be July. So
fairly fast.
yeah,
Fairly quick, yeah.
Yep.
That's
6 weeks,
exciting.
I would say 6 to 8 weeks is what I would guess.
Yep.
Super.
Exciting stuff. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Appreciate
Brian. So you have a resolution in front of you authorizing us to put that application in.
make the motion to authorize the submittal of an Energizing Rural Communities Prize application on behalf of the Morris Model Team.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that resolution. We'll have roll call on that resolution, Ashley.
Councilmember Kraus,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Gullikson, Mayor Wallers.
Yes. All right, we will move on to a resolution authorizing the resurfacing of Wells Park basketball court.
Yeah, this actually it was something that's been on the agenda for the park board, you know, taking a look at this basketball court over there. And obviously, we have the pickleball court and the basketball court that's being done down in Green River Park. And so when Outdoor Specialties came down to look at that project and kind of figure out exactly what they had to do, we had them come over and look at the basketball court at Wells Park. And we thought at one point, because I think you've all seen it, it's cracked pretty good, but yet at the same time, they have a process where they can cover those cracks and put a surface over the top of it, and it's not going to be a problem. And this is a really good established company that's going to be doing this work. And so we had them give us a quote, and that's what you have before you is a quote in the amount of $14,445. As long as they're in town doing the other work, it's cheaper for them to do it. There's money in the budget within the capital outlay reserve to do it, and you know, I'm recommending let's just do it. Then we'll be done with it, and we can move on to other things for the upcoming years.
This is the same company that did the pickleball courts over
No,
at
it's
Wells?
a different company. Yep. They're a great big company that actually they do work throughout the country. They're working on a big pickleball, what was it, like a 32 court system out in Arizona for some wealthy club that they had memberships in, that they kind of got into pickleball. But they have a really good process. They're showing us how they would do it, and they didn't feel the cracks were bad enough that you'd have to resurface, put in a new concrete surface, and it would work just fine.
We've been talking about it on the park board, thinking that we'd have to tear it up. You have the cost of tearing it up and relaying concrete to try to put something back in to be decent shape. This is gonna be a quick fix. That sounds like it's gonna be a better surface, and like you
Well, and
said,
I
as
think
long
the
as they're in
tennis
town.
courts are resurfacing those now, kind of with the same process, you know, filling in the cracks and stuff. It's not the same company, it's a different company, but
Yeah, it looks like we have the money to do it, and we budgeted 50, and it looks like there's gonna be money left after even doing the other ones, so. Does that make sense?
I drive by the court every single night. I can tell you that it gets used all summer. As soon as the snow melts off,
That's
it's
right.
utilized all the time.
All right, any further discussion on that resolution? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I will move a resolution authorizing the resurfacing of the Wells Park basketball court.
Before any secondary, I do have one question. What's the timeline?
Yeah,
they're gonna be coming in, the concrete for the pickleball court had to cure for 30 days, and then they'll come back in to surface it. And then the timing actually works really well for them, because they have to do some things over there, and then they have to do some things here as they're doing it. So it's gonna be within the next month.
With that in mind, I will second.
okay. We have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote on that, please. On that resolution, Ashley.
Councilmember Selby,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Gullikson, Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Wallers.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to a resolution approving a conditional use permit for Gary Fair.
Yeah, and Zach was at this meeting. We had very little discussion about this at all. I think that was the shortest planning commission meeting I've been to in a long, long time. And basically what the planning commission decided was, let's do the same thing that city council did with the Mosier conditional use permit. We'll do dark sky compliant lighting, we'll take off the condition that they had placed on the Mosier one for the level of lighting, and then they went ahead and they recommended approving it that way. Not a lot of discussion on it.
And of course, this is the house that's already been built.
This is the house
so-
that's already built, and actually, if you go by there and look, the lights are contained within a box anyway. So I think there was 2 lights on the driveway, and there's 3 or 4 lights on the garage area, but they're all contained in a decorative box, so they're dark sky compliant. There's no way the light will go up, and so there's not gonna be an issue with it anyway.
All right, any further discussion on that resolution?
I'll move on the resolution approving a conditional use permit for Gary Fair.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that resolution. We'll have another roll call vote on that, please, Ashley.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Phillipson, Russ,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Mayor Wallace,
Yes. All right, moving on. We have a resolution authorizing final sidewalk concrete cutting for work in 2023.
Yeah, so we budgeted about $50,000 for 2023 to do sidewalk cutting, and when Matt Freeland came in to survey the work that they're gonna do, I said, just survey the whole rest of the work and let me know what that cost is. And so then he figured out about $50,000 worth of work, and we signed the purchase order and had him get started. And he came back in, and the remaining amount of work that needs to be done is the 17,000, what was it?
595.
595. And so I'm recommending, they're in town right now. I think they're over by the liquor store doing their work. I'm recommending, let's just go ahead and take money out of our capital outlay reserve and have them finished, and then we're done. And when you're budgeting for next year, you can take that $50,000 that you're using for sidewalk concrete cutting, and you can move it into something else and do it with that, with the improvement fund. And they'll be done with everything in town.
Just for my knowledge, where would the additional funds, it's a shift, obviously, right? But where would those come from?
So capital outlay is where any overage from the general fund comes to each year,
Okay.
so we just use some of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a fairly large capital outlay fund reserve, and when the auditors were presenting, they talked about how the year turned out last year.
Yep.
Any excess money goes in there, and
So if we go ahead with this will take care of the cutting, but how about mud jacking?
yeah,
We
so,
talked about trees that coming out that
yep,
are issues there, so we haven't started on any.
we
of
haven't got to a lot of that yet. They've been working on trees, getting the trees on the boulevards and stuff. I don't know if you've seen them around town. They've been doing a lot of trimming on trees and taking care of the cracked ones and diseased trees and stuff like that. But yeah, they have to mud jack the places that sank, and then they have to remove the sidewalk and cut the trees where we're gonna leave the trees.
Cut some of the
bumped up.
roots that's
Yep.
under the sidewalk.
So that'll be,
The next step, the process.
that'll be the next step, yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion on that resolution?
Since they're in town working on it anyway, and we can wrap it up for under $20,000, yeah, I think that's common sense to get it done. I will move on the resolution authorizing the final sidewalk concrete cutting work in 2023 as listed.
And I will second that resolution. Oh, and now we'll have roll call vote on that, please, Ashley, on that resolution.
Councilmember Phillipson, Miller,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Mayor Wallace,
Yes. All right, last resolution for the night is a resolution for the authorization to execute Minnesota Department of Transportation Airport Maintenance and Operation Grant Contract number 105-3299.
Yeah, so this is an ongoing thing. The state of Minnesota provides us funding to do maintenance at the airport, and as I indicated in the memo, we get, they provide 75% of eligible costs up to a maximum of, for this year, it's 35,000. For the last period, 2022 and 2023, it was $29,451. So they did raise it during the last period. I think they froze it because of COVID and some other things that they weren't quite sure about at the time. But it's an ongoing thing that we get money from the state for maintenance at the airport.
Such as mowing, snow
Mowing.
removal,
Propane takes up a lot of it.
of what?
Fuel,
Okay.
heating fuel, things like that.
Do they always do in 2-year increments like this?
Yes.
Is the propane figured into a hangar rent, some type of formula?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, that's one of the items that we should take a look at is, you know,
Yeah.
what we charge for hangar rent and fuel costs and things like that. I think that'd be a good project to work into the system.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, is if that's where most of this is going to.
Well, to take a look at it, study it, figure it out to see where it's spent, but I would think
Yep.
that electricity shouldn't be real bad. That should be pretty easy to have a rough ballpark, but the fuel on some of those hangars and what's the occupancy of the hangars out there, just for our information. The one is pretty tough looking.
Yeah,
We
well,
talked about
that's
that.
one of the last projects we have is, although this, when we do the apron work, they're gonna repave around that one green T hanger because there's some concrete that keeps shoving up and down. And so what they're gonna do is they're gonna pave closer to the hangar itself and get rid of some of that concrete. You know, but that one we've talked about, it just doesn't have a good foundation for the concrete, so it moves up and down like it does in Minnesota. And the building itself is actually in pretty good shape. It's just that the doors sometimes don't open the right way.
We had
Which-
to look at when, from the May 2022 storm to see if it'd be covered by insurance, but they would just cover the replacement of the 3 doors.
Yeah, we had
Okay.
3 doors that were busted up.
And that's coming anytime now, they're gonna be installing
Okay.
finally.
To-do list for down the road.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion on that resolution?
I will move on a resolution for the authorization to execute Minnesota Department of Transportation Airport Maintenance and Operation Grant contract for the 2-year period.
No second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the resolution for the maintenance and operation grant. We'll have roll call vote on that resolution. Ashley, please.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Tillotson, Mayor Wallace.
Yes. Okay, we shall move on to the city manager's newsletter.
I'll talk about a couple things and then throw it out for questions, but they had this really cool thing that I got to be part of. Brian was part of it, the Morse Youth Challenge Institute, or Challenge Youth Institute, where we had a bunch of high school students came to Morse, and actually they presented papers on various topics, whether it was water or hunger or housing or I know in my group there was one on, you know, public safety, you know, and they're looking at other foreign countries and, you know, how they could maybe possibly have some ideas to help with that. And then there's going to be winners selected that are going to go on to the national level. So that was kind of cool. And then, you know, they got to tour tour Morris in electric school bus, which is kind of cool to be able to show that off. And they got a chance to see our water treatment plant and what's happening up on the research center and the green campus tour and all those kind of things. And so it was a really good opportunity for high school kids to come in and see, you know, what's happening in Morris, and then they can go back to their communities and talk to their teachers and classmates and stuff about it. So that was a lot of fun. We had some really good papers that were presented in our group, I know that. I don't know if I was a 9th or 10th grader that I could have got up and done that in front of strangers, but there's some really sharp people out there. The big thing is the legislative session is done, and I think they did everything they wanted to do, which is unbelievable. But the number one thing for us is they put $80 million into local government aid. So when we sit down and look at the budget for next year, you're going to have about $246,000 more than this year, which is a huge chunk of money. You know, so when you're looking at trying to figure out how to balance budget with potential wage increases or insurance increases and stuff like that, or one of the things that I've done over the years is to use that additional money if we get a big chunk to do the balancing for wages and insurance and stuff, keep taxes down, maybe spend it on some one-time things that year, and then the next year use that money to do the same thing. So, you know, typically, I don't know if we figured it out, but just with wages and stuff alone, we probably spend another $60,000 to $70,000 a year more, you know, and union contracts are up, so we don't know what's going to happen next year with that. But it's some money that you can do some things with, and I was surprised because the governor came out and he offered up $35 million to go into this pool, and the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities asked for $100 million to go in there to kind of get us back up to where we needed to be. They talked about an inflationary adjustment because they did that with some of their programs, but that didn't get put in there, and that's fine, you know, because like I said, that chunk of money, you know, you can do a lot of things with it over the next few years, you know, within your budget. So we know that's done, but at the same time, we also know that there's some things that we don't know how it's going to affect us. I started printing out some of the stuff, anywhere from, that's the finance, but there's an earned sick and safe time that every employee that we have, and I can't remember when this one starts. That's where we're going to, Whitney and I are going to sit in on a webinar with the League of Minnesota Cities that they're going to kind of lay out all these things. But every employee will get 1 hour of sick and safe time leave for every 30 hours they work. And we don't know how that's going to affect, and that's not just for cities, that's for all the employers in Minnesota. And so we have to look at, you know, how does that play into, we already have union contracts that give people sick leave and vacation time and stuff like that. And then they had the other family leave one where they wound up, let me see, the paid family and medical leave bill. So that's 20 hours of leave are going to be made available in 2 different categories. One is medical leave, and one is family leave. So an individual that, say, has a problem with one of their family members and they have to take time off of work to take care of them, they can take up to 12 weeks, and that would leave 8 weeks to do something else, you know, and then that's going to be paid for, and this starts January 1, 2026. That's going to be paid for by a tax on everybody. So it's going to be 0.7% on employees and 0.7% on the employers. But the way they wrote it is the employer has to pay it. So you have to calculate how many hours they work, you know, or what their pay was, and then you have to calculate what that amount is going to be, and then you have to submit it to the state, but they're gonna allow you to recoup 50% of that from your employees. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they worded it that way, that no, you're gonna tax your employees 0.7. And there will be employers that'll probably pay it all, you know, big corporations and stuff like that, that may pay it all, but yeah.
They're gonna
The
need seed.
farm agencies, but the bottom line is, and then it's gonna work more like workers' comp, where, you know, if you need to take time off, you're gonna have to apply to the state, and they're gonna have a state agency, and the state agency is gonna pay you, based upon, I think it's like 2/3 like workers' comp or whatever. But they'll provide you a check, so the employer won't have to pay it. But then we have no idea how that's gonna work with union contracts, because like with workers' comp, you know, they can make up the difference with their sick leave and vacation that they have, and I don't know what's gonna happen with sick leave and vacation, there's some language in there, but it's gonna be really complicated to try to even, you know, to have the payroll system that'll be able to keep track of all this stuff. Cause it's everybody, it's part-time employees that come in for the summer, for some of this stuff, and
If it's 2/3, it's probably tax-free then.
no, I think they still have to pay some taxes on it, because I don't think the state and federal government is probably, or the federal government's probably not gonna let them get money tax-free, and, well, they'll figure it out, but the big thing is that when the budget's being put together, I don't think that one's gonna affect 2024. I think the other leave will affect it in the sense that we're gonna have to figure out, you know, what happens with an employee that needs to take time off, you know, and stuff. But, you know, on the other hand, our union contracts are up at the end of the year. So you can try to figure it out and try to get it put into the union contract that this is the way it's gonna work. You can't have all this and then have all this, and there's some language that talks about how if you already provide leaves, you know, that you can apply for some kind of recognition of that. But the one thing I would leave you with is that we have sick leave. Sick and safe leave is a completely different thing, because it incorporates leaves for other reasons than you just being sick as an individual. You know, a good example, they talked about domestic violence. So if somebody has a problem and they have to be gone from work or whatever it is, or they also talked about, and we know this full well, because this past winter was terrible. Every time they closed school, if you didn't have daycare for your kids and you had to figure out who was gonna watch the kids, well, that might be part of that, you know, that you could use some of that leave. And so I really honestly believe what's gonna happen is we're gonna rewrite the language in union contracts that deal with leaves. You know, there's some cities went to PTO, I don't know what you guys have, PTO, where you just call it leave and then you have so many hours and you can use it for this and this and this and this. Whereas we have vacation, we have sick leave, we have comp time, you know, that people use. But I think that whole narrative of leave is gonna change, you know, and incorporate some of this in there and some of that, because you still have to have people working. You know, and 20 weeks is a long time.
So they're gonna need seed money to start funding these programs, right? So will they start pulling that money right away? Or?
No, so I think part of the legislation is they're putting a huge chunk of money into the pot first. The state is to seed it, and then they'll start collecting. So stay tuned, you know, and there's lots of other stuff that's coming out. You know, we're trying to figure out what's gonna happen with elections and,
There goes the surplus.
and,
You know they spend that.
but then, you know, there could be, you know, they're doing stuff with license tabs and they're doing stuff with the gas tax, but then at the same time, they're doing stuff with funding for roads, you know, and I think I read where the license tab one is going into a pot, and that pot, I think it was like maybe 25% of it has to go back to small towns, you know, and then, you know, but we know how we get money from the state, you know, so it's not just a matter of them sending us a check, it's for things that you're working on and stuff like that. But this is, I've never ever seen anything like this in all the years that I've been doing this, because it's in, you know, on the one hand, you know, nobody sat around doing nothing, because they pretty much had everything on the table, and next year, you know, even marijuana, they've been talking about that for 10 years or longer, and it's finally kind of off the table, but now they'll figure out how it's gonna work, and even for a city like us, I know they had talked about, you know, and I don't know what the final bill was, but they talked about, you know, maybe allowing cities to have only one place, because I think they talked about like one dispensary for 10,000 people. So it could be that in the county, and I think the county will take the lead on the marijuana probably, because they take the lead on the cigarettes, tobacco, and I don't know if I think the county does something with vaping, don't they? Or maybe not.
Well, we do have a tobacco ordinance that covers vaping too.
So there'll be, you know, because somebody's gonna wanna sell marijuana, and they said it's gonna take between 12 and 18 months before they'll actually start issuing licenses for people to sell. But people will be able to start, you know, using it whenever it goes into effect. I'm not sure what date, if it was August or July, that it was gonna go into effect.
You have to create the Office of Cannabis Management first.
So there's lots of new state employees are gonna be created, but
So what happens if we get more than one person that wants to start selling? Are we gonna regulate that at the city level?
well, the state will regulate
Shut
them
a few down.
for one. So they'll have to get a license from the state, but then if the county or the city opts to put into place their own rules and regulations, which, you know, I was listening to a little bit of the discussion, but it's like if they allow the city to limit it to one dispensary, then I would imagine the city would be able to set up some rules on who that might be, maybe,
We'll have to see the final bill.
yeah.
One thing I know for sure is that you can't outright ban it. That's part of the legislation.
Yeah, I know there's, cities talked about putting a moratorium on it, but you can't, I mean, it's gonna be legal for them to do it. At the same time, I think the THC, like where they sell gummies and then they sell the beverages that have it in there, they're gonna be regulated now, and actually, I think the tax, they have to pay sales tax on that, and then I can't remember if it was 8 or 10%. 10% is gonna be the marijuana tax on gummies and beverages and stuff like that, and all that money goes into the state. So, yeah,
I think some of you remember when, back in the day, we used to have, I think the magic number was 7 liquor licenses.
yeah.
When we first, and then of course that went away, and now we're pretty much unlimited to a point.
As long as they're selling food, they can sell liquor.
Right.
If they're just strictly a bar selling booze, then we still are limited to 7. But most places sell food.
That's a magic percentage, has to be food, I believe. Like 50 or,
I thought all places had to sell a little bit of food.
No, you can have,
To open at a certain time you do.
Maybe
I think-
better put a candy machine next to the cannabis machine.
gummy machine.
gummy machine and
Munch.
stuff.
Well, that is part of the legislation too, though, is that they can't make it attractive to children.
Oh,
You know, the packaging and the
Yeah.
product itself cannot be designed in a way that, such as gummy bears.
Yeah, so, and I'd answer any other questions that you might have on the newsletter. We'll be watching this, and the league will do a really good job of kind of rifling through this stuff, and then they'll put information out, and then as time goes, we'll figure out what we have to do.
I see in the West Central Initiative funding, there's some wording there on possibly Dr. Engel and Guido coming and doing some stuff. Is there anything on the schedule for any activity back and forth between our sister city, Sarbec, and us
Not right now.
in the near future? that you
Yeah,
know
I don't think, Dr. Engel had funding to be able to send a group over or to have a group come back, but that's kind of an ongoing thing that they're working on. There's some additional cities that join the Climate Smart Municipalities group, and, a couple are gonna come and visit us, St. James and New Ulm, and find out what we're working on, so.
Dates on that, if we're around,
I
Yeah, off
think
the
it's
top of your
June
head.
5th that they're coming.
that Monday?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because I got a call from the chief of police for New Ulm is a county commissioner for the county, which is legal, because he's not an elected official as a chief and he's not working for the county. But I said, you must have no time available to you for anything else. But he was very interested in coming here and was worried that, we don't want to bring people if you don't expect us to bring people, too many people and stuff. It's like, bring as many people as you want. We're more than welcome to have as many people as you bring with you. And so then he was kind of working off his county position when he called, so that county group is going to be coming up. And I've talked to 2 of them already. And Griffin will put together a tour, and the university and the research, kind of the standard tours that we do there. But it's going to be fun to have a group of people come in and take a look at all the stuff that we're working on. They've heard about it and they're interested in it.
All right, anything else on the city manager's newsletter?
The only thing that I noticed, well, in addition to everything that's been mentioned, is your comment about the budget.
Yep.
In there. My plan for transition, and we can talk about that more at the work session, is to write the guidance and share it with the new city manager. And you'd like to know if that's okay, works with us, so.
Yeah, because this is normally the time I would
Yep.
do it, and I've already, in those of you that have been around know what's kind of in there, but things like, local government aid, things like, I have a pretty good idea where I think salaries might be going, based upon settlements that other cities are seeing. The inflation's starting to come down, but inflation was up, and we have a pretty good idea of, we just got our insurance renewal for like workers' comp and stuff like that. So you get a lot of that detail in there, and then there's gonna be some things in there that I'm working on that, I'm not gonna be around to finish working on, but, East 7th Street's, a good example and stuff like that. But, the other thing that I do is I typically put together, a spreadsheet that has all the employees on it, and I calculate out what those costs would be. So I'll probably have to add the family leave. Well, I guess I won't have to for this year, but I might do it just to give you an idea of what it would cost if we had to pay out, 0.7%. And then I do, I don't know if I think most of you know this, but when I started in 2007, every single account, Whitney knows this, every single account that the city has in accounting is on a spreadsheet that I work off of. And so I can go back and look at every single year going back to 2007 and see exactly what we did, revenue and expense, for every single account that we have. And that's the way I really put together a budget. And so then I'm loading in the actual year-to-date from 2022, so you can see what you did. And then I'll give you my best guess at what I think is gonna happen. Obviously, in the general fund, you get 250,000 more to work with. That's gonna go a long ways towards doing a lot of stuff. But still, there's other things that are in there, and then I'll just leave all that stuff. All my files are on a network file that whoever comes in is gonna be able to go in and see everything that I've been working on. So I can do that before I leave, and that'll be my, I don't think you're gonna have to raise taxes next year because you're gonna have enough money to balance budget. But normally, I always look at like maybe 2 to 3% increase in taxes to keep it down. You know, and people are very lucky that taxes don't go up a lot here, despite what the kid said in the
Yeah.
city council. City council, they do the same thing when I teach ninth graders. It's like, yeah, they think taxes are too high, and it's like, they have no idea. Your cell phone bill is high, your taxes aren't high, but, yeah, so if that's okay, I'll do that, but I don't wanna push anything towards anybody.
Well, I think, could speak for us all, that it'd be very appreciative to have something for whoever comes in, to have something to work with, and yes, not
Yeah.
set in stone, but here's what is set up, and to do whatever, you know, we work with our new city manager going forward, but here is a recommendation or where I see things at right now, and I'm very appreciative of you doing that.
That's a preliminary budget is kind of what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
just my thoughts.
That'd be very helpful.
But you know, when I came in 2007, the city manager before me didn't have a computer. And it's like, what? Never had a computer. So it's like, well, that's not the way it's gonna work. You know, cause I have to know what's going on with stuff, so it's the easiest way to do it.
All right, any other discussion on the city manager's newsletter? If not, we'll move on to the board member updates. I guess I'll actually start. We had that tree planting, the last Thursday, that would be May 18th, over in the Unknown Park, which, you know, I'm surprised to find out, really, that park has been there forever, and I didn't even, you know, all the times we went on park tours and stuff, I don't think we ever drove by that park, and it is a city park, we've been
It
maintaining
is,
it.
it is actually a city
Well,
park.
it's,
I don't believe it's actually on our city park list.
It's technically a city park, is
it's
what I was.
it's owned
Green
by,
space.
it's owned by Riley's. We maintain it. If I remember correct, it's still in their name. So what happens is when residential subdivisions were built, there was a requirement that you had to designate a space for a park. And we got away from doing that because you can't have a park in every little neighborhood. And so actually when the elementary school property was dealt with, they just, in lieu of designating a part of that for a park, they just provided some funding back to the city for parks. You know, but this one was designated, and I can tell you that it was not the choicest piece of land in that residential development. You've been by there and looked at it. But it was, so that it was set aside for a park, and then we maintained it. Because I was surprised that it was there too, when it came up the first time that we talked about it in the park board. You know, it's like, I have no idea what this is, but yeah, so it was never ever named as a park. I don't know that, and like, I'd have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure it's still in Riley Properties' name.
You have to look at the plat, but I'd have to double check, but I think once you sign off on, the city signs off on the plat, if they've signed off on it, it becomes a city park.
Yeah, and it could be that they just didn't do the paperwork to give that to us for a park. That happened with the stormwater ponds out in the new commercial district out there, where somebody said, well, why are we still paying taxes on your stormwater ponds? And I go, I have no idea. It's like, oh, you haven't signed them over to us yet. So then they actually deeded them over to us, and then we recorded it, and then we wound up with them.
Well, one thing we could do is, you know, give that park a name. We could have a naming contest or something like that. I mean, if it is truly our park, we should have a name for it. And I know we all received the correspondence from the one individual out there that had issues with the trees. We did plant 20 trees, and Mayor Wallers was in a group with 2 Girl Scouts, and the leader of our group had a broken ankle. So I guess you know who was doing the digging. The man with the heart condition.
How's the ankle?
Oh, yippee skippy.
Ankle's okay.
Yeah, we planted a couple evergreens and a huckberry, but it went really well. And, you know, I think to that point it was, the individual actually did come walk over when Sue Granger was out staking out where the trees were gonna be, so our city guys could come and just pre-drill part of the holes, and, the individual did come over and talk to Sue, and the main argument he had was he wanted a playground equipment there, as you know. And Sue had indicated to him that, you know, that still can be done down the road. I mean, those trees can be moved, and maybe we could put, you know, a small set in there somewhere, but,
I mean, I guess part of mine, I live out in that area too, and it's like, do we have to approve where they plant trees? Does the city council have any say in that?
Well, you could, yeah, I think.
Well, I mean, I think we should a little bit, because it's like, nobody in the neighborhood got a choice really about somebody slamming in 20 trees in their neighborhood. So, you know, even if they wanted playground equipment now, oh, well, we can move them later. Well, that's an associated cost that we're gonna have to do later.
yeah.
And it's like, maybe the people there don't want 20 trees. I drive around town and there's a lot of places you can't even see houses, there's so many trees. And we've been working on trees for a year and a half, it seems like, here, taking out stuff. So, I mean, I understand his concern. It's like, oh, they just can go in and just plant a whole bunch of trees. Or on your boulevard, you know, if we take them out, somebody goes in there and plants trees, and the person that has the land there, or it's their house, they don't want trees there. I mean, they should be given the choice whether or not you should be able to put trees back on the boulevard. We need to be a little more strategic about what we're doing with them, because, you know, where the high lines are or anything like that. But I mean, I understand where he's coming from. He didn't really get a chance to voice it. I mean, so
Well, yeah,
I mean,
and
it didn't
that's-
go through here. You know, I think that there needs to be some sort of regulation. It needs to come through the council to be okayed where we're going to be putting these trees in the city, so that if citizens have a concern, you know, they're not going to go to the tree board. They're going to come to us or write us about why they're getting put there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not against planting trees. I'm just saying that maybe we should have a little say on it, or people have.
Property owner, I agree with the property owner.
Yep.
I had one a year ago that was getting 5 trees in his boulevard in front of his house, and he's like, I don't want 5 trees. I said, 3 is more than plenty. And then Jay went and met with, and he said, I don't want one here. And it's like, nope, there's one going in. And it was like, you know, I mean, we should listen to our citizens a bit more, and I appreciate the tree board and they're doing, but yeah, with the property owner and helping take care of them, and your tree in your front yard, you're gonna look at for the next 40, 50 years. We
Well,
should
then
have
it's
a bit more input on it.
Right, and then also now we have a bunch of trees planted. Who has to water them? Our city employees have to. We're out there watering. I don't see that the tree board doesn't have a budget to water trees, do they?
No.
Okay, so we're having a hard time getting the lawns mowed, or, you know, our green spaces and sprayed and all these other jobs done, and now we're watering all these other trees. So, I mean, I think we have to consider some of these, what we're taxing our employees with too in the city with doing these things. And so, I mean, I understand, I really do understand this person's little bit of frustration there. Didn't get a say, didn't get a choice. It's
Yep.
just people are gonna come in and plant a bunch of trees in your neighborhood.
Well, and I think what you're talking about, Brian, is just we need to do a better job of engaging with the citizens, and, you know, kind of between the park board and the tree board, you know, if you look at a priority, I know the park board has established different projects. Obviously, we got the pickleball court going on, and we have a lot of projects that they've earmarked, so this, you know, those projects were earmarked because it more bang for your buck. It's in a, you know, the Wells Park thing, you know, gets used a lot. So when you look at the priority, this park probably was way down the pecking order somewhere, but at least if we could identify, you know, the park and say, you know, we do have a plan for this, but it's gonna be a while, and I think that's all this individual probably.
Well, I can tell
wanted
you
to
they
hear.
don't want, the park board does not want to park there. That's what the recommendation is. We don't want that to be a park. And we've talked about it a number of times in, you know, because as it comes, you know, I think the last person that talked to me was Don Munsterman. you know, because they wanted playground equipment. It's not a good piece of land to put a park on.
Yeah.
But,
That's good.
and then,
You know,
and then
and-
our community, our situation down there is, we're not that far from Green River.
And that's,
And
That's
that's
the other
the.
part.
You know, and the
boards.
city can only maintain
Right,
so many parks. We
Right.
have so much money, so much budget
right.
to spend on these things. And I really don't believe the public really understands what it costs to put playground equipment in.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not like you go to Menards and you buy that nice little cute set there and you got, it's like 100 times that.
I think
You know,
last
in
time
your
we got
expense.
equipment, it was 25,000,
Yeah.
between 25 and 50.
25 and
To
50,000.
get stuff.
And it wasn't that
that's-
many pieces.
No,
Right.
it's very expensive, and you're regulated and handicap accessible, and the things that you're required to have, so. Yeah,
So,
I mean,
and just to get back, you know, what should happen is there should be a policy established on trees, there should be a policy established on parks. You have a park board, they've been looking at these parks, and everything that was just said is exactly what the conclusion was. We focus on the bigger parks,
Yes.
we put in decent equipment. You know, there's a bike path within a couple blocks of where that neighborhood is, they can go down to Green River Park, we're putting in all kinds of stuff. But when it comes to trees, one of the things I recommended, because we had that other issue with the big cottonwood over by Lake Crystal, and I recommended back through Sue Granger that any trees that you're gonna plant on the boulevards, you should let the property owners know that you're gonna plant trees there. And if they don't want them, if somebody came to me, if I saw that white stake in my boulevard, I would take it down and I would bring it back down to City Hall and say, you're not planting another tree in this tiny little boulevard. It's not gonna work. They should be over here where the 2 trees are that I have. But when you don't have sidewalks, cause in Highland Homes, we had people that, what are these stakes for out here? Well, they're gonna put trees in. Well, I don't want them in my yard. You know, I do not want them in my yard, and do they have a right to say whether or not a tree goes in their yard? That's where you come in to make a policy.
Yep.
They have a right not to have the tree on their boulevard.
Yeah, well, that could be up for discussion with the tree board.
Well,
You
I
know,
mean,
because
I think,
I've
I
had,
think
I've had that discussion in
and
the
I mean,
past.
really, I mean, because, you know, it is, you mow it, you upkeep it, everything, yeah, it is technically city property, right? Am I correct?
Well, we have the right to put stuff in the right of way.
Okay.
We're within our right of way is what it's called. And so we have a right to put sidewalks in there, and we have a right, and then we have rules on who maintains sidewalks. And we have a right to put in curb and gutter, and we have a right to put in a road in a right of way, and so we do kind of own the trees in the right of way.
Is there any, like, the project we just completed on Sixth Street, you know, they redid that. I don't really see any trees planted on the boulevard, you know.
They will be.
I think we shouldn't, because when I look down that now, it looks awesome. I mean, it widens it out. It looks so nice. You know, it really, really improved that street.
Yes, it
I
did.
think it did.
But that's
Now,
right.
now you're gonna come in there, you're gonna pop trees in there, you're gonna go over the road and over in, pretty soon, in 15 years, we're putting another 100 grand into our budget because we're shaving the concrete because it's going up and down. And we're doing other things. I mean, I think you can let homeowners, maybe if you want, say, hey, would you like to plant a tree? Plant it in their yard or something, but not in the boulevard, because we just have, there's so many ongoing problems with that as you go forward. And that space to the sidewalk and that opens that street up, just, to me, is just, really looks really, really nice. I think
But that's
crowding
that's
trees in the
policy
boulevard.
stuff. That's
And I,
right.
and I think we need to talk about
Yeah.
that. I think we need to start setting some of that where, at least the homeowners have a choice or should be approached and asked whether or not they want trees on their boulevard.
Sounds like a good work session topic, really.
Yeah,
We could spend some time with that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that's, you know, some of it, I had a person that approached me about it, that the trees took down, but one of the branches fell down and, you know, hit his car, hit his neighbor's car or something like that, and then boulevard, plus the sidewalk was up, and they came and started planting new trees, and he didn't want them. You know, I think they got yanked out too, but, you know, I mean, they kindly should just ask. I don't know that we need to fill our boulevards with trees everywhere. I really, really think people should go down Sixth Street and say, you know, this is what it looks like without it. Trees back by the house, but that boulevard is nice and clear and open. I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
All right, any other board member updates? We all sit on boards?
Park is listed here, and our Torgy does a nice job of writing our minutes and submits them to Blaine, and
Yep.
so everyone has what's happening there with the park board.
Yeah, and they're gonna be placing some benches too, the women
Yes,
today.
they're actually
Yeah.
purchasing the benches. The Public Works is gonna pour the concrete pads to mount them in and then go set them in the different spots, as it's sort of tough to watch cement dry to make sure nobody comes and messes with stuff. Just a reminder, June 13th, park tour again after our council meeting
Yep,
on our first meeting in June. And we can get some tours of all the parks, and we can specifically have our bus driver go by the new tree park there, Waller's Park.
yep, exactly right. My heart rate was manageable, so all, life was good. And of course, we have the May 30th work session. We've seen that as a reminder there on our agenda.
You skipped over letter B. My only question on that is what's the start time on that? June 6th.
The interviews.
You should have received an itinerary.
On our
Wasn't that
email?
sent to the council?
No, not yet,
Yeah.
that's up to Patrick first.
Oh,
And have a fan photo.
okay.
Hold it ready for
Okay,
everybody.
then I can speak to that. I have a copy of the agenda, or the itinerary in front of me. We sent it to Patrick, and of course. We're gonna start, the day is gonna start at 9 o'clock in the morning. And 9 to 9:45, and I'll send this to you guys, or when.
We can wait for Whitney to send
Patrick's
it to
gonna
us.
send
Yep,
out
we
the
can
whole
wait.
packet.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, he's sending it all out, but I'll just kind of hit the highlights. We're gonna start at 9. 9 to 9:45 is gonna be a city tour. We're gonna start out with a tour of the city, and it's gonna be a drive-by tour. We're just gonna use a bus. And it is open to the public, so if members of the public wanna come and sit on the tour, they can. Mayor Wallers is gonna guide the tour, and we're just gonna drive by and hit the highlights of Morris. And then we're gonna come back here, and then we'll start conducting interviews. It's not a deal where we're gonna stop, you know, we're not gonna get out and stop at Superior, we're not gonna stop at blah, blah, blah. We're just gonna drive through. We just thought it'd be a good icebreaker for the candidates, give them a little bit of a flavor for the city of Morris, and may stem some conversation, get to know each other type of a thing. And then from there, we're gonna march into we'll come back here, of course, and then we'll start the interview process. We're gonna have a lunch here, and you'll get all the information, but
Will any of this be recorded?
Probably
the,
not. Yeah.
when it becomes public, when we get down to the 2 finalists, then that will be.
Yeah, but I suppose, what's our legality there with the quorum?
If you have a quorum, it's a public meeting.
Well, you've called a special meeting for June 6th, right?
Yeah, that's. Did you guys do
And
that
media
last
is
week?
invited.
Yeah, everybody, it
Okay,
is
so we
public.
should be okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking if you can't be there that day, if we could watch it somehow.
Yeah, I don't know
It
how
should
we
be
would.
recorded, I would think.
Well, if you're in here, we can record,
But yeah, the tour
but
itself,
the tour itself, we don't have the capability of recording
Not
it.
the tour, but just the interviews.
oh,
I'm gonna be at the lake
the actual, when we get down, yeah, I think, well, see, the interviews are gonna be in 3 different locations. We're gonna have, over the library is gonna be one group, city manager, or the city council and the mayor are gonna probably be here, and then the city staff and, department heads will be probably in the location over in the
This one.
city hall. So they're gonna be going on in different locations, so it's gonna be, I don't know how we,
So the media couldn't be in all of them anyway.
Send all 3 of you.
through those.
But,
Are they all in
but
the
if the city council's in here, you
It's
can
recorded.
record
Yeah,
that,
we
because
could-
that's.
Okay.
And
that's
they'll,
the
all
one
the
you can
candidates
worry
will come through here, so you'll
Okay.
eventually get to see, because the candidates are gonna move, you know, we're gonna stay here, so they'll just rotate,
Okay.
because there's 3 candidates. And I can read those, you've probably seen it. Kathy Lauer, Rebecca Schrump, and Holly Wilson are the 3 finalists for the city manager's position. And I think I can speak, Jeff, on behalf of the advisory committee. We're very lucky. You know, you given the labor market, the labor pool that's out there right now for city manager positions, the 3 finalists, or any one of the 3 will do a fine job. They're very qualified, they all have experience, so we're pretty fortunate. Jeff, would you like to add anything to that?
I just thought it went very smooth, the process that we went through. I'm very happy that we hired a firm to assist us with the process. And, you know, we talked about originally the money, but they took care of the advertising, finding people, a contact person, and interviewed all the department heads, all the council, to get a feel of what everybody was after. And we've been very fortunate, I think, to have a good rapport, working relationship with the firm that we've hired. And yeah, I'm excited to see the process here on the 6th of June when we do the interviews.
And just kind of a heads up, the list of questions and so forth, we're gonna solicit probably feedback from members of the council on the exact questions. We're gonna have like a sample group of questions sent to us, and then we can select, as a council, we can select which questions we think are appropriate and how many questions, that type of thing. But just, we'll have to keep in mind that we're gonna allow 45 minutes per candidate. That's sort of the time frame we're gonna be working with, so we're gonna be on kind of a tight schedule that day, but things are gonna move pretty quickly. So.
And if you have some questions you wanna ask, yeah, we basically would like you to present them back to the firm that's taking care of things, and then just to go through to make sure on legality, or to ask them the questions. And then we're gonna have a set questions that will be asked of the candidates, but you can make your requests, and not guaranteeing all the questions that are submitted will be asked, but it will be taken into consideration for department heads, our community group, and the council.
Yeah, I ditto Jeff's remarks. It's been really kind of fun to be a part of it. And Stacy, oh, go ahead.
Just to build on your question of time frame, so then the interviews should be done by 2, and then you guys as a council will meet with Patrick, go over feedback, and you guys will come up with a finalist 1 and finalist 2. And before you guys adjourn on June 6th, you will decide as a group who you want to be offered the job.
Yeah, the candidate 1, the reason why you come up with 2 is because maybe for some reason, candidate 1, we can't come together, then you have your second candidate.
Gotcha.
And the council will be taking feedback from the department heads and our community group, but ultimately it will be the decision of the council and the mayor, taking into consideration the input from the other 2 groups.
And then the goal from June 6th to the next meeting, which is the week after the 13th, Patrick will be negotiating with the individual
Yep.
based on the committee or your guys' approval of it, and then it'll come for resolution for approval on the 13th.
And then start on the 1st of July, hopefully.
And just a shout out to Whitney and Stacy too. They were very helpful, and it's been fun pulling all this together. So I just want to thank them too for their efforts. Let's see. Any other board member updates? Anything anybody would like to report? Hearing none. We have the last item here. Any other business that anybody would like to present to the council? Otherwise, we got the informational items you've seen there. That was from Tony Reimers. It looks like Community Ed's got a busy summer plan, so I always appreciate Tony sending that out. So it's always kind of nice to know what they got going on.
Our work session also May 30th.
May
Just
30th.
If there's anything else to add to that, any other topics, subjects that any of us have, it would be wise to probably converse with Mayor Wallers to put that together, but
I think we'll be consumed, the time will be, it'll take a lot of time to kind of come up with that transition plan. I think that'll consume a lot of our time, but, just to throw it out there, I was talking to, Josh, Randy Fisher over at this, ambulance service, and he welcomed us to come and tour that sometime. You know, they just recently finished their addition, and so, you know, we could even do something like that at one of these work sessions, just go there. He said he'd be glad to take us through and show all the improvements that they've made and that kind of stuff, so it's something else we could do sometime, but yeah, I think we'll be plenty busy on the 30th, but just trying to make sure that transition is gonna go smooth, and so we have a plan there. All right, anything else anybody would like to bring to the council? If not, meeting adjourned.